Welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Emmett Muckles. Please visit iTunes, Stitcher, or emmettmuckles.com to listen to all the episodes for free.
Today, ladies and gentlemen, my guest is Else Byskov, an international authority on the groundbreaking work of Martinus, the Danish philosopher, visionary, and mystic. Else has written 6 books covering profound aspects of Martinus's worldview. The spiritual science of Martinus is a spiritual nourishment for us, living here right now in modern society with a scientific outlook. Please stay tuned. My interview with Else Byskov. Else, can you tell me how you got to now?
I was a searching soul, I was looking for answers to all the big questions, and I couldn't find them anywhere, and it was sort of getting me a little bit pissed off. And then, when the pupil is ready, the teacher appears.
Absolutely.
And that definitely happened in my case, because one day, that was after we had moved to Spain, I looked in a box with some of our books which had been stored, and on the top of this in this book box, there was a book about the Danish mystic Martinus, whom I had never heard about. But it so appealed to me that it was as if my intuition told me, wow, this is something that you should take an interest in. So I read what was in this book about Martinus, and that sort of whetted my appetite. And we bought all the books that Martinus had written. They are still in their totality only available in Danish, but they are being translated into a lot of other languages. But anyway, I bought them in Danish, and in its totality, it's 10,000 pages of spiritual wisdom. It's a lot. It's like a lifelong study. Anyway, we bought all those books, and I read the major part of it. I managed to read in a year. And when I had read it, everything fell into place for me. I was so over the moon about the teachings of Martinus. And why was I over the moon? Because these teachings explained everything, all the mysteries of life, but in a way that appealed to my intelligence. It appealed to my intellect like nothing I had ever read. Because, the religious things, they were only always appealing to my feelings, and it didn't make sense. There was no logic in it. There was no intelligence in it. It was just like, no. I didn't like religion at all, but the work of Martinus so appealed to my intelligence that I thought, whoa, this is so amazing. Here everything is, the solution to the mystery of life has been explained in a way that is so logical. And I thought, whoa, I have to tell somebody about this. And because I have also have a university degree in English, I thought the Danes can read about it because they can just read Martinus's original work. So let me write an introduction to Martinus's work in English, which I did. And that is the book that's called Death is an Illusion. And it was published in 2002, which is now 16 years ago. And after that, I have written and published 5 other books about aspects of Martinus's worldview, his spiritual science, because Martinus's work is really spiritual science. It explains the spiritual world, but it is not an object of faith. It's not a new religion. It is not something that you should believe in. It's something that you should study. And then when you have studied it, you should compare it to what you can see in the physical world. And then you should see if those two things fit. And that's what I've been doing. I met the Martinus material in 1995, which is 23 years ago now. And I have studied it ever since, every day. I study it sometimes, some days, of course, I read more than other days. I have now read his main work, the Book of Life, 3 or 4 times. And it's such I mean, every time you read it, you peel off another layer. It is so deep, it is so profound. So
let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
When did you come to this epiphany? When did you discover this? At what age were you when you finally began to absorb this?
I was 45.
Oh.
Yeah.
So for that first 45 years, I'll even take it back. I'll give you 35 years because the first 10, you're just trying to figure life out.
Exactly. Yes.
So during all that time, what did your life consist of? I mean, were you just, I'm just going to get through this life and see what happens? Or, nothing makes sense to me. We're just bags of water floating around and interacting with each other.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, everything is governed by chance. And I must just see how I can survive this. How can I get a job? How can I get enough money so that I can have a place to live and maybe even a car to drive around in? And, it was just only a question of survival, really. And, I was convinced that we only lived once. So, like, finding a meaning anywhere was absolutely impossible. You cannot find meaning when you think that you only live once.
But what about your inspiration? I mean, during that period, there had to be something that made your heart glow, made you, besides your family, there might have been a hobby or something that you really enjoyed that says, now I'm starting to get what life is about. I mean, something that was tangible on this planet.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was very much, I was in love with Spain as such, and I traveled there as often as I could. And it just so appealed to me, the whole culture of Spain and the nature and the climate, everything about it. I mean, of course, I had things that made my heart sing. I had a wonderful husband. I had children. The usual stuff that you have to do when you're younger. I don't say you have to do it, but that many people do when they're younger. But because I was a searching soul, I mean, I was a deprived teenager. And my father died when I was 15. And I knew that there was something about his death that didn't fit. Because I thought, bullshit, he's not dead. He's just gone to some other plane. I mean, I could not, even as a 15-year-old, I couldn't mourn. Because I knew it's not true, he isn't dead. Oh, come on. And of course, because of that and because of other things, of course, I became a searching soul. And as I said, I'm sure that I attracted these answers that I was looking for, because the law of attraction works like that. You attract what you want. And then I encountered this Martinus material, and it made such a difference in my life. Everything changed. I could not, after I had read it, I could not look at the world in the same old way as before. I could now only see the world through the lenses that the Martinus material had shown me. And then I realized we do not only live once. Death is an illusion. The one life theory sucks, and it totally sucks. But it does.
So why do you think people only have the one life theory, that we only experience a single chance?
Yeah, I think there were several reasons for it. The main reason is that most people think that they are identical to their physical body. They think that this physical body is who I am, and they do not realize that it is absolutely not so. We are not identical to our physical body. Our physical body is an instrument, a vehicle for our I or consciousness. Who we really are is our consciousness, and our consciousness is a field of energy. A field of energy consisting of thoughts, emotions, everything we are. So if we think of our aura, many people can see auras, some can't. You can photograph your aura if you use the Kirlian technique. But it is a fact that, some people will acknowledge. I'm not saying that the materialistic scientists will acknowledge it, but it is a fact that around us, at a distance of about 50 centimeters, all around our body, we have an energy field. And this energy field can be visualized via the Kirlian technology And you can see that the colors, and you can see there's an aura around you. This aura is an electric magnetic field. And this is the electric magnetic field holds energy. It is energy, and it holds information. So all the information about who we are sits as electromagnetic radiation in the field that surrounds us. And this field is who we really are. We are not the physical instrument. The physical instrument is just something that the field uses for its sojourn on the physical plane. And the instrument, our physical body, when that instrument becomes useless because of old age or illnesses or injury, we pull our spiritual body, our consciousness, we pull out of the physical body. But because this consciousness is a field of energy, it is electricity. Electricity and energy cannot dissolve. It exists. It keeps existing.
It just changes form.
It changes form. You can say that. It no longer has any connection to the physical body. But just as the electricity doesn't cease to exist when you turn off the lamp, the electricity of your consciousness or I or spirit, you can call it what you want, you can also call it your soul, lives on. It lives on, and it goes on to the spiritual plane, where it will then have a good long rest in wonderful surroundings. And then when it's ready to get on with its development, it will return, it will reincarnate into a new little physical body. And it will recommence its evolution from exactly the point when it stopped the last time it died. It's the same as when you go to bed. You go to bed, you sleep, you wake up. When you wake up, you're still the same person, right?
Right.
Yes, you're still the same person, and you continue your life from where it stopped last night.
So saying that,
mm-hmm.
In many religions, they talk about reincarnation, or
yes.
Some don't talk about reincarnation, or they talk about, for instance, in Christianity, they say you reincarnate, but you don't really reincarnate on this plane. You either go to, if you interpret it this way, heaven, purgatory, or hell, which is a reincarnation of itself. But most people don't think that they can reincarnate into a similar plane or something for them to learn on. Is the idea of reincarnation just religious, or does it pull from the same thing that you're talking about?
It's absolutely not just religious. It is a fact. Every living being reincarnates, be it a plant, an animal, a human, a cell, a molecule, an atom. Every living being reincarnates. It is through reincarnation that life is blown, if we can call it that, onto the physical plane. And let me explain the process of reincarnation, because the Martinus material really very, very clearly explains what happens. When we pass over, we pull our spirit with everything, all the knowledge about who we are. We pull that out of the physical body. Then that field of energy has a good long rest on the spiritual plane. And after, depending on how old you were when you last died, let's say you were a soldier who died in war, typically 7 years will pass. If you died as a young child, you will reincarnate again quickly. If you die as an old woman, you will reincarnate. It will take longer before you reincarnate. But anyway, when you are ready to reincarnate and you realize, I have to get on with my physical journey, you have to go back to the physical plane. And then from your place in the spiritual realms, you begin to emit, because your spiritual body operates on a specific wavelength. And this wavelength, this is very interesting, depends on the type of thoughts you think. You have a different wavelength if you're a very positive person and think loving and helpful and kind thoughts. And if you're a very angry and pissed off person, a terrorist, your wavelength will be different. Of course, that makes sense.
That makes sense.
You can't. Yes. So from your wavelength, you will start to approach the physical plane in the sense that you will be emitting a signal saying, hey, I'm ready. And that signal will be picked up by a lovemaking couple on the physical plane. But in order for the two to attract each other, and here we have the law of attraction again, the joint wavelength of the lovemaking couple has to have similarity with your own wavelength. But when it does, you will join the party of the sexual intercourse, and once the egg and the sperm cell have united, the spiritual being will incarnate its spirit into the egg and the sperm cell. And here's the point: it will completely take over the creation of the embryo in the womb. The egg and the sperm cell, they only initiate the process. The spirit needs a small amount of physical matter to start the process of reincarnation. And that small amount is what is held in the egg cell and the sperm cell. But in order for the lovemaking couple to attract a spiritual being, they have to reach a very high level of energy. And that higher level of energy is what we reach during orgasm. We all know that we sort of, it escalates, and suddenly we are on a specific plane, and that high energy, vibrational energy is what is able to attract the spiritual being waiting for reincarnation on the spiritual plane. Yes. That doesn't mean that you can't conceive a child without, as we know, because
it happens, yes.
Yes. But anyway, this is the principle. But once the important thing here is to know that there are three parties in the creation of an embryo. There's there's the male, there's the female, and there's the discarnate being. And the discarnate being will create a new body for himself, completely in his own favor. He will pick and choose in the genetic material, and he will create the body just as he wants it, based on his level of development, his level of evolution. And that means that once this child is born, it is a perfect instrument for the continued evolution of that person who has now been born. And as I said, he continues his evolution on the physical plane from the place where he stopped when he last died. And if you want to, a very important part of this package that reincarnates, it's the I, it's the consciousness, it's our level of evolution, it's what we can find it in our hearts to do to others, it's our level of intelligence, it's our likes and dislikes, our tendencies, our habits. Everything is in that field. But a very important part of it is our talents. Our talents that we have worked hard to get. You can only be good at something if you practice and do it a lot of times. And our talents are part of our fate element. And these talents are also incarnated into the new physical being. And this is it's an interesting point with the talents, because what you are good at, what you are born with as a gift or as a talent, tells you very much about what you did in your former incarnations, what you have practiced. And if we look at YouTube or Facebook, you see so many small bits of videos about children who sit down at a piano. They are 3 or they are 4, and they play like a virtuoso. Yeah. And that's because they have practiced it. They have practiced it in their former lives. They are damn good at it when they incarnate. And that goes with everything that we are good at. I was born with a huge talent for cooking. And I started cooking already when I was 3 or 4. And I was just standing there, And it was because it was just something that I was good at. I was good at learning foreign languages, something I had also practiced in former lives. And I think you cannot explain away the talents without thinking that this is something that person has practiced and developed to virtuosity, in a former life. You cannot, because some people say, yeah, but we can find if somebody is born with a talent for this, it's all in the genes. No, it's not. It's not in the genes. The gene is a recipe for a protein. And you cannot say that a protein is responsible for all these abilities that have no physical place, you know? You cannot pinpoint a talent for anything. You cannot pinpoint it to any part of the physical body. It's not physical. It's spiritual.
So what about those people who have challenges, who come into this plane with challenges, whether they be mental, physical? Is that a part of it as well?
Absolutely, it is, because what rules our fate is the law of karma. The law of karma is very, very simple. It states you reap as you sow, and what you reap, what you sow in one life, you can reap in a later life. Sometimes what you reap will come back. What you sow will come back to you quickly in this life, but sometimes it takes a long time for. I mean, when you do an act, you send out an energy into the universe. There's no straight line in the universe, so this energy will travel through the universe for a certain amount of time. But sooner or later, in this life or in the later life, will come back to you, its origin, to you. And when it does, it will affect your fate, because you will reap as you sow. Let's say that I killed a man. I was pissed off, and this guy had been a real nuisance. So I thought, let's get rid of him, I'll kill him. And in that way, you have sent out a karmic arch into the universe that will come back to you. And it will come back in the same shape and form as it was sent out.
Ooh.
And that means that you will be killed. One day, a killer will come along. You will attract that killer. You will attract it with the vibration of your aura. You will attract that killer and you will be killed. But the reason for your killing is not, the killer is actually not the one to blame for this killing. The killing is you are to blame for this killing, because this is something that you did to others. And it goes for everything. Every little thing we do creates karma. If we steal, we will be stolen from. If we lie, we will be lied to. If we cheat, we will be cheated. If we have an extramarital affair, that same thing will happen to us. And I mean, this list is simply endless. If we are kind and loving, that will come back as well. Of course, everything we do, everything we send out will come back to us in the shape of our fate. And if people have big challenges in their life, and I know many, many people have, it is a reaping of a seed that they have sown themselves. And mind you, I'm not saying that they themselves are to blame, because they didn't know what they were doing. They were doing it out of ignorance. But still, it would not be in their life if they hadn't sown it. But, I mean, not to worry. Life is endless. We are eternal beings. We have enough lifetimes to learn and improve. We are all undergoing a process of perfection. We are all moving up from the animal kingdom through the unfinished human kingdom, which is where we are today, to the kingdom of the finished human being. The finished human being is somebody who cannot kill, who cannot lie, who cannot cheat, who can only emanate love and understanding and kindness. A being like Jesus, he was a finished human being. And that is where we are all heading. But we haven't arrived there yet.
Oh, no, we haven't.
We're on our way. Yeah. And some have come further than others. Obviously, the terrorist has not come as far as Mother Teresa, which is pretty obvious. You see, it doesn't matter. I mean, of course, it's not nice to experience a life of suffering. It's not nice. Obviously not.
Yeah.
But we should also understand that nobody suffers more than anybody else. I mean, if we look out across the world and we can see oh, Bill Gates, he's not suffering a lot. Look at all the money he has, and he must have a great life. And then you look at somebody else who is sleeping in the gutter and is totally unhappy and totally ill and maybe disabled. You think, how can that be? How can it actually be that one lives a life of luxury in prosperity and abundance, and another one lives a miserable life? That's because you cannot understand the fate of anybody seen in a one-life perspective. You have to see it over a perspective that encompasses a lot of lives. And as I was saying, nobody experiences more suffering than anybody else. Everybody has to go through the same to become the same. So when we see somebody who is really fortunate, and then we must understand that that person has probably reached a point when the suffering that he had to go through happened in some earlier lives. He's already been through his suffering, and that is why he is today a very loving and compassionate being.
Hey, what about when you see people who they're kind of turds, they're kind of bad turds, but they are living like the best life? Because I've seen some people who have all the high-level things on this earth, but they're horrible people.
Yes, that's true. That's true. And I mean, I don't need to come with an example, but it is just that they will get back. I mean, they might be horrible, but they will get it back. I mean, okay, they can have been fortunate and be born into riches, but that doesn't mean that they are very finished. They can still be very primitive in their way of thinking. They can be egoistic. They can be greedy. They can have no consideration for the lives of others. But of course, what they sow, they will reap. And I know many people think, there was this dictator like Allende, for example, in Chile. He died. He was such an asshole, and then he died, and never was he was never brought to justice. And the good thing about the law of karma is no problem, no need to worry about it, because he will reap what he sows, and sooner or later he will be in exactly the same situation as the one he put his victims in. So the universe is ruled by the strictest of judgment. And of justice. And so there's no need to worry. If somebody is an asshole and he doesn't get it back, no problem, not my problem. He will get it back, because that is how the world works. That is how the law of attraction works. And there's no escaping it, really.
So let me ask you: Are you doing any workshops? Are you doing any tours? Are you coming to the States? What are you doing to promote your works?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I've written. I concentrate on writing, really, and I have my website where I upload a blog post every month. And but I haven't. I mean, I don't think there has been a lot of interest in my work from the States. As I said, my book, Death is an Illusion, was published in the States by Paragon House Publishers, 2002. There's been practically no interest in it. And I've been wondering very much about it and saying why. But maybe maybe the time hasn't come. Maybe the time has only come now, And I mean, you have to be ready for this. Because many people who hear what I'm saying will think, oh, no, oh, that's a load of bull.
No, actually, I think the movement is changing globally for consciousness.
Yes.
And many people have had the same idea as you when you were younger. Like, this doesn't resonate with me because it separates so many people. Yeah. For my own background, one of the biggest things about Christianity, I was like, Christianity was used to enslave and beat people and treat them very horribly around the world. And I can think of countless other things. And if you choose any organized religion, you can find some aspect where somebody's used that doctrine for their own power.
Yes.
So this movement is growing where people are trying to understand the greater picture of spirituality, because most of the doctrine that we have was written so long ago, it's almost not relevant in its communication because the words don't actually mean what they mean to us. So, and for one thing, you have to show that beautiful face and that wonderful hair that you have. People want to see you.
Okay.
So you have to get out. But how can people find you on Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff?
I have my website called newspiritualscience.com.
Uh-huh.
And I have my Facebook page also called New Spiritual Science 101. I have that's what I mostly use. I have a Twitter account, but it's just called Else Byskov. I don't use it much. I don't know. I don't have any followers, so why should I use it? But you see, I agree with what you're saying, because people are hungry for a different kind of spirituality, not religion, because religion has put so many people off and it has disappointed so many people. And that is because it has been used. All the dogmas of Christianity have not been created by Jesus. If you look at Jesus's mission in itself, everything he said and did was full of love, it was full of meaning, it was full of logic. But afterwards, those primitive people who grabbed it and called themselves priests and cardinals and popes and whatever, they was only into one thing, and that was power for themselves and greed. And then they have completely misused it, and they have completely fucked it up, excuse me. But they have. And that is why so many people, they cannot buy into it. They cannot buy into this religious stuff because it makes no sense. It does not appeal to their intellect. It only appeals to their feelings. And as we evolve, our instinct deteriorates. I mean, we lived for many years when we lived as animals on our instinct, and also as primitive humans, we lived on our instinct. But the instinct decreases at the expense of the growth of our intelligence. And once our intelligence becomes, our energy of intelligence overtakes the energy of instinct, we no longer have the plug to plug into religions, because you need to be able to believe in order to believe in a religion. But if your instinct has gone down, you don't have anything to believe with. You only have your intelligence, and your intelligence will tell you, no, this is not for me, sorry. So in a way, your intelligence blocks your way to belief.
I can see that. I can really understand how intelligence gets in the way of something that is bigger than us, because everything that we've detected or can measure is something we've made so we can be able to measure it. But there are some things that we just don't have the mechanism to detect yet. And that's the biggest thing about science. Hey, if we can't measure it, it's not real. Well, maybe you just don't have the right tools to measure it.
Yes, and this is such a good point, and I'm glad you brought it up, because a materialistic scientist will say, no, there's no such thing as this thing you're talking about, your aura and all that. That is not something that we can measure and see, so it doesn't exist. Okay, so what the scientist is saying is that invisible matter that we cannot touch does not exist. And hey, I would then say, but we use this invisible matter that I'm talking about, electromagnetic radiation, we use that every day, all of us in the Western world, when we are using it now, when we talk on our mobile phones, when we listen to the radio, when we watch television, when we roam on the internet, all these things that we use every day, when we go in our car and use the GPS, are based in the fact that invisible matter that can carry information exists. Am I right?
That's true.
Yes. So, claiming that invisible matter does not exist is totally out there in this modern world. We use this type of material every day. We swear by it. I mean, where would we be if we didn't have our mobile phones?
That is true with me.
Anyway, so claiming that invisible matter does not exist is bullshit. It is not true. It exists, and we know it. And this, our spiritual body exists in the same type of matter as does all other matter in the electromagnetic spectrum. The electromagnetic spectrum is huge. It has a huge range. It has such a big range that we haven't even discovered how big it is yet.
Yeah.
But because there are so many different wavelengths and frequencies, nobody can exclude that this type of matter can also be good for our spiritual body. And this is what Martinus says. Our spiritual body consists of ray-formed matter, and ray-formed matter is the same as the electromagnetic radiation. And it is a fact that it exists. So where's the problem? The problem isn't anywhere, really. We just have to get our heads around that we are not our physical body.
Yeah.
Our physical body is an instrument that we use for the duration of our physical life. But as we live thousands and thousands of physical lives, losing our one physical body is not a big deal. It's not a big deal. It's business as usual. And I mean, there's a lot of scientists that say, yeah, we have some sort of collective consciousness because sometimes we can access what our ancestors did, and we have some memories. Yeah, we have these memories because those ancestors were us. We personally have been on that long evolutionary journey from before we were primates, before we were plants. It's an endless journey, and I have explained it very meticulously in Death as an Illusion. It's probably too much to get into here because it's a long, long story, but it is completely and absolutely logical, and it appeals to our intellect when you have read it, and that is how I felt when I read the Martinus material. You just think, this is it. This is the truth. This is how things are, because it makes so much sense. Martinus also says that you have to have a little bit of your intuition has to be developed to some point, because if you have absolutely no intuitive ability, you won't really be able to understand it. You can't really link up to it mentally, unless you have some intuitive ability.
Okay.
And that's why people who have no intuitive ability, they will say, no, that makes no sense. But it does.
Well, we're hitting the end of our mark for our show here, and I want to thank you so much for being on the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast.
You're most welcome. It was a pleasure.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is how I end the show. Remember this. On this plane, I want you to appreciate yourself, because, a lot of our problems begin because we don't even observe our self in the equation. So as I always say, when you get out the shower, when you get out the bathtub, stop rushing to put something on and just let it flow. Drop the towel, go to the mirror, wipe the fog from the mirror, and in your glory of the God body that you were given, I want you to revel in that. And then I want you to turn around. Maybe you got that little saggy arm, that little chicken wing. Maybe you got a little pooch in the middle. Maybe you got dad bod syndrome. It doesn't matter. It's still you. And there are many who are like you. And when you get closer to the mirror, move up close. And I want you to look at those balls of energy that are like little galaxies on the either side of your head. You may not have them both, but hey, you still have them. As above, so below. Because those eyes are like galaxies. And there's a canal that brings energy in. It's called your nose. They're there for a reason. So when you see another that is like that has those galaxies in that orb of a brain and head thing, treat them as you would like to be treated, with respect, love, and justice. Till next time, love you all. Peace.